Natalia on Luxury with Natalia, Yachting International Radio, live here with special guest Jasper Smith from Arcsen, all the way in London. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, Natalia. Really good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming on. And last time I saw you, it was a sunny sky in Monaco for the Explorer Yacht Summit. So what's changed since then?
Well, I've got a lot older, so a year older. But yeah, no, I mean, quite a lot. I mean, I think it's a really fascinating time in the industry. There's a real sort of zeitgeist moment, and you never, when you start these ventures, you never quite know what is going to happen. But yeah, no, it's been phenomenal. The last year's been, huge amounts of interest, lots of positive comments. A few people are a bit dumbfounded by what we're doing, which is always a good thing. Yeah, no, it's been a busy year, and I don't know what your ambitions and aspirations are for 2020, but ours are just more of the same, quicker, faster, trying to grow the brand,
trying to keep up with what's happening, especially with your company being in technology and bringing to the forefront something quite interesting in terms of exploration vessels. Now, you started bringing out the awareness of ocean conservation and environmental issues back in 1987, and here we are in the new decade, 2020, the Roaring Twenties as they call it. So what has changed, do you think, in terms of mentality, in terms of what people are waking up to today?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I mean, I think there is obviously a massive awareness now, partly driven by Greta Thunberg and by, Extinction Rebellion and things like that around sort of climate change. And, obviously that's an issue that's been with us for 35, 40 years, and we've known all the science for decades. But it's fascinating seeing how quickly we're beginning to adapt and adopt new, technologies, and the marine industry has been very underfunded for years and years and years. There's been a massive lack of sort of capital from VCs and private equity going into it, particularly at the grassroots level, and that sort of led to this sort of stagnation of the industry, very slow iterations, very slow innovation. So we were sort of like, the automobile industry has gone through this profound revolution. The sort of, aviation industry is halfway through that profound revolution, and the marine industry just seemed pretty stuck. So we were like, let's apply some of the technology wit that we've learned in the games industry and elsewhere, and let's try and bring that to this industry and couple that with all of the sort of traditional brilliance of the industry, and its craftsmanship and its ability to build these extraordinary vessels. But it's the marriage of those two things that I think really fascinates me.
And it's interesting how you employ the word vessels, because as I've seen, and I've been talking to several shipyards, and we're talking more the super yacht industry, they're catching on that there's a market for all these exploration yachts, vessels. And so I'd like to know, in the audience perhaps, what is the difference between what you do as Arksen and what other shipyards who are more in the past known for building super yachts that cruise the beautiful Mediterranean, let's say?
So I think there's a few points there. I guess the first is perhaps the most significant, which is like a lot of these things, we're starting from scratch. And when you start from scratch, it's a wonderful thing. And it's very rare in business, you get to start absolutely from a blank piece of paper, which means that you can, you've got no legacy, you've got no staff to re-educate, you've got no build processes to re-inform or customer groups to re-educate. You literally start from an ambition, blank piece of paper. And that ambition was to build this completely new class of yacht in a very, very sustainable way, and in a way where wasn't really necessarily about owning a boat. It was about these extraordinary things that you could do with them. And so we don't really see ourselves as a vessel building company or a yacht building company. We see ourselves as an experiential company. We see ourselves a little bit like maybe Patagonia or North Face or those sorts of companies. They create great tools that enable you to do these wonderful things, and they're very proud of the tools they create. But it's almost an excuse to go and climb the mountain. It's an excuse to ski down this hill, or it's an excuse to go into the forest. And so we see the opportunity in this sector really about building these remarkable vessels in a way that is very, gentle on the environment and has real, forethought in terms of how the supply chain works, and how do we log and audit the carbon footprint of the build and of usage and all of those things. And what we want our owners to feel is that they've bought into something that's much more than just greenwash, but is profoundly built around this concept of behavioral change, and they've bought it because they desire a set of experiences that are actually almost impossible in other types of vessels. So there's lots of bits there, but I think the true joy of what we're doing comes from the fact that we're not starting with one business and trying to pivot and make it sort of green, which is what almost all businesses are trying to do. Like, how do we make it greener? And starting from scratch is just it's a wonderful thing.
Thank God that you were around then to come up with this, because as an entrepreneur, your past has been very different to what you're doing today. Yes, colourful, and that, I think that makes a true innovator and somebody pioneering, because obviously you've had a lot of experiences and you've brought those together to now see, okay, well, this is where I was and this is where I want to go, and here we are today. But I find it fascinating how so many people, companies, are just now waking up. I mean, it's not been a topic that has just slipped into the perspective. It's been around for years and years and centuries, and suddenly it's just also, I feel, become a bit of a trend, and people think that as philanthropists, it's going to do good for them as corporate, for their company to be able to say, I did good to the environment, so look at me, we're good. And that's a bit of a sticking point, and I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are as an entrepreneur, not just because of Arcsin, but in general.
Sure. Look, I think as human beings, there's a part of all of us that wants to do good, right? I mean, we're all, we've all got our foibles, and we want to be paid well, and we want success, and we want cars, and we want all these sorts of things. Equally, there's a whole part of our psyche that is conscious, I think, about how we tread on the world and what our footprint is, and how we behave. And so there's a conflict between those things, and that conflict's probably never greater than when you own and buy a boat, right? Because they are significant, in some senses, trophy assets. And so this has all been about trying to not make these things about owning an asset, but make them statements of intent. So my statement is, I've bought all of, or a part of, a vessel that is designed to support important scientific research, is designed to go to extraordinary places, and is designed with a very, very long life cycle in mind, and with the ability to recycle it at the end of its life cycle, at end of life. And hopefully it gets reiterated many times through its life. But I think the core of it is just putting the science programs around these vessels really changes people's psyche around usage. So if you can get on board with your kids and all that, and there's a science program everyone can engage in, that really changes the psyche from just sitting there drinking gin and tonic and doing some of the things that we all love doing anyway, but adds a new element to it. So I think that's one side of it. And I think the other side is, given how we're, the conflict I was talking about, how we're all driven by the idea of sort of giving back, philanthropy has been something that, I personally have been really into for a while, but I think it's growing significantly. The word is used much more widely now, and, there's more money going into philanthropy now than there has been forever. But there are significant areas that are totally underfunded, and the ocean, oddly enough, is so significantly underfunded. Ocean research, ocean conservation, protection, and things like that. It gets something like 0.8% of all charitable funding, but it's mad given it's 75% of the planet. Every second breath we take, from the oxygen, we've only discovered, I think, sort of 8% of all the life that's within the ocean, we think.
The ocean.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, when you look at it, it's absolutely absurd that it's getting less than 1% of all charitable funding. So one of the things we're really keen to do, so we've got this initiative called 10% for the Ocean, is just try and shift that needle, encourage people to pledge 10% of their charitable donations or their philanthropy to ocean-related causes. Because if you can shift that if you can shift that needle, you can do so much to protect the ocean, and literally every human being on the planet is, inextricably linked to the survival of the ocean and the health of the ocean. So if the ocean's, whacked out and full of pollution and toxic, we've got nowhere to go, right? I mean, I think as Branson said, there's no ocean B. So,
That's true. That's a nice one, yeah.
Sort of get the quantum of capital going into ocean conservation up very, as quickly as possible. So that's that initiative.
That's great. And when did you start with this initiative, and how has the response been so far?
So it's very new. So we'll sort of announce it formally in Düsseldorf. So it's the first program that the Arcsin Foundation, which is a UK registered charity, is launching. So yeah, it's pretty new. And I think everyone we speak to is really, really loves the idea. It's a really simple sort of metric to get, from 1 to 10. And I think, anyone who loves the ocean, can't fail to grasp the significance of ocean conservation being so massively underfunded. So, I hope it will go really well. Most of our partners and suppliers have bought into it. Obviously, all of the Arksen owners by default buy into it, so they donate 10% of the vessel's sea time to research projects and things like that. So yeah, we'll have to see how it goes ultimately, but
it's
a great initiative. Yeah,
absolutely. The more we can all do.
Sorry, I hope you're going to join.
Oh yeah, well I joined the Blue Marine London to Monaco cycling, so I really put my hard sweat and tears into raising funds and actually doing some good for myself in the sense of getting some exercise done. But I love initiatives, and I do try my best to do everything I can to bring awareness. And of course, Yachting International Radio, here we are, we're talking live, and hopefully we'll get more coverage and more people interested in participating. So
how was the cycle ride? Was that really fun?
It was really fun. I've done it 2 years in a row, year 1 and 2. I had a bit of a break, but it's awesome. And because we're all industry people and we get together, and it's a chance to remove yourself from the day-to-day of what we do and actually reflect on hardships of, God, this is me pushing my limits to get from A to B, and then knowing that all the support is out there and people are helping to finance it, all this stuff, and it's just amazing. Good vibe. And it's like a family. We all become a family.
Yeah, I was there when you guys arrived. I didn't see you there actually, but I'm sure you were. You were on a motorbike, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Me on the Vespa. I must get an electric Vespa.
Great initiative.
Yeah, exactly. So, everybody's contributing. Everyone's trying to do their best, and there's different initiatives and ways of doing it. So, there's no right or wrong. There's definitely just ways, levels, and we can all do our share, and that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Fantastic. So in terms of the Oxen vessels, tell us a bit more about them, because not many people might be familiar with what makes them specific and what updates there might have been since.
Yeah, I mean, so we've got 3 primary vessels in the large boat range, and we've just announced, I think we're just announcing, I'll probably get slapped for this, but we've announcing another smaller boat range. In a partnership with another company called Ring, who make power boats. So that'll be really interesting. So on the big boat side, we are about to put the first 85 into production. So that's that'll be really exciting for us. It's taken quite a long time to get to this point. It's been a huge amount of engineering to sort of test and get some of the systems and processes in place that we think are important to this sort of truly authentic type of explorer boat. I mean, there are an awful lot of explorer boats, and there are an awful lot of them that don't go that far out of the Med, but these things are designed to go to Antarctic, to go to the Arctic, to be at sea for 3 months plus if people want to be at sea that long, to be super stable, to be completely research capable. So for taking samples, dropping things down to the sea floor, supporting diving expeditions and things like that. So they're designed to have all of the adventure equipment that you would need, all the expedition equipment that you would need to host scientists and things like that, but are profoundly great to be on from a family's perspective or an owner's perspective. And they've got very long range. There's about 7,000 mile plus range. They've got things like recovery from capsize. Hopefully that never happens, but I think it's sort of if you're designing a boat that's going to go for that long, that far, it's just a sort of another thing built in that you sort of think, if I do get caught, like I said, hopefully it never happens, but it's a survival thing.
Yeah.
And it's sort of got very large water tanks. It's got large fuel capacities. The first boat we're building is a hybrid, so that's got silent running capability. It's got huge solar arrays. It's got solar arrays that are built in, but also mobile solar arrays. So, in theory, you can run, again, to be tested, but you can run more, at slow speed, more or less indefinitely if the weather's okay.
Yeah.
Under solar. And the ambition with these vessels was just to make them super efficient. So, to be able to, get the things moving with extremely low power requirements, and to design them so that we're great to be on board, really sort of efficient in terms of how space is utilized, and the sort of fluid dynamics of the hull structures and things like that. And I think overall, there's no perfect in this industry, but overall, I think the package that we've sort of put together is pretty out there in terms of capability and quality and things like that. So I don't, for instance, there aren't that many coded 24-meter sort of explorer boats built to this sort of built to this standard. So it'd be interesting to see how it plays. I mean, obviously they come at a price, and one of the things is going to be what's the sort of market acceptance of quality. Now, you can look in the car industry and see cheap cars, expensive cars, but boats are a very different market, and so it would be interesting to see whether people will adopt quality and pay the price for quality in the sort of volumes that we hope they will. But
I'm sure
next year.
They are more and more in demand now, and also coming from people who have perhaps spent a bit more time in the field and being out there and seeing the rugged and the beauty of it and feeling it. That is what's important. I guess your clients are of that caliber, who are either already inspired in doing it or more intrigued in becoming one of those people who would want to go into the depths of the unknown and see what's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing people come from all angles. We're seeing people come from sailing boats saying, they want to go into a sort of a slightly more remote areas where sailing's not as straightforward as it is around the Med. We've got people that have got existing motorboats that just they haven't got the range, or they're not designed to go much beyond the beaten track. So it's interesting seeing where these customers are coming from.
Yeah.
Area that we're most interested in is sort of bringing people that have not had a boat before. Bringing people that actually just want to get off grid and go and do something amazing. And the world's pretty screwed up at the moment, so getting off grid feels quite attractive to me.
Yeah, leaves all that, the reality behind to a certain extent.
So that's at the big boat end. So there's three larger boats starting at a 70-footer and going 100 plus. With the 85 is the one that's going into production first. And then on the smaller boat range, I don't want to call them mini Arcsens, because they're not designed to go on their own back to the Arctic and things like that. But they're sort of highly capable boats that can be used, within, a couple 100-mile range, that sort of thing. but they have berths and things like that. But they're designed to be super rugged, same sort of ethos. But what it enables us to do is sort of spread the community a bit, because one of the things we're most passionate about is just getting people on the water, getting people to experience how wonderful it is when you even a mile offshore, you feel like you're in a different world. And so it's really about trying to get more people to understand the wonder and the complexity and the beauty of the ocean. And so having a range of product that enables people that haven't got huge amounts of capital to get into this, get into that experience, is really valuable to us.
That's exciting. Yeah, exactly. And it becomes a bit of a family, doesn't it? Because you could evolve from the smaller to the bigger, and in relation to your situation and how you're evolving too. So that's awesome.
And the idea is that they've all got common features, common data platforms and things like that. So for sampling and for research and things, integrity of that platform from an infrastructure point of view should be really useful for marine science everywhere. Rather than just using the big boats.
Yeah, sure. And so what else is happening in terms of, I think you've got experiential ownership model that is quite new and innovative that is offered to your clients. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so one of the things that's always sort of upset me about the business is the cost of owning these vessels, and the fact that we're also time pushed, that it's quite hard for some, a lot of people that haven't got huge amounts of capital or huge amounts of time. It's quite hard for them to get on board with this type of thing. And you look at it and you go, I'd love to do that, but I'm only going to use the thing 2 or 3 weeks a year, or I'm only going to, I only want to have it for a year or 2 years or 3 years or something. So we're sort of trying to react to that. And our model is all about trying to build this, as we were just saying, trying to build this sort of huge community of people that are passionate about adventure and experiences, and doing amazing things with their kids and their friends and wives and families, and just trying to bring the best out of ourselves. And we didn't want to just do that for this relatively small community that could afford to fully own a vessel and do that themselves. So the idea was a sort of a fractional ownership syndicate model wrapped around providing this sort of fully curated experience, and I think it's really exciting. So the way we've done it is to have a system that enables people to trade in and trade out, so they're not locked into anything, where they can buy 1 week up to 10 weeks time, depending on what their criteria is, and making sure that when they do use the vessel, it's fully crewed, fully fueled, all the berthing's included, the food's included. So there's none of this sort of, let's spend the first day trying to, provision the boat, and let's spend the last 2 days cleaning the boat. And it's just, come on, have a spectacular time, go and do some wonderful, go on some great experiences. Designed for the family, really. So it was a way of saying, how do we get kids, and the family to really be part of the whole thing, which sort of feeds into the smaller boat ranges and all that stuff as well. So yeah, it's a fractional ownership scheme that has easy in, easy out, where the experience is completely curated. So fully crewed, as I said, provision, berth, fueled, and you just pay a pretty low fee. And those fees are quite low depending on what you want. Something like a couple of $1,000 a month for 2 weeks a year on an 85-footer that you co-own. The cash flows are slightly different to that, but overall, get it over the whole period of ownership. It's a really, it's a much lower cost route for people to come in, and it just means that people don't have to wait. You don't have to sort of wait till you've got to retirement age to do these things. So you just have, in my mind, I think it's like a really profound thing for the industry and for the business. And obviously lots of people have done fractional ownership, but we've not seen it where it's wrapped around the experiences, where it's wrapped around these vessels being completely serviced. It's like it's almost like in the tech business, you call it a SaaS business. So it's like a SaaS business for ownership, which is quite
getting techie there. Love it. That's awesome, and making it more attainable for those who want to just tap in and get excited by it. I suppose it's also that, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's like the last boat we owned, we were using, 2 weeks of the year, and it was sat in the marina doing nothing for, the other 50 weeks. And I hated that. I just hated the idea that there was this tool that people could use that could have gone and done conservation research and all the rest of it. But I didn't have the time or the infrastructure to support that. And, it just didn't feel like a satisfactory trade.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Whereas I think this really works. I think that really fits this problem where you've got thousands of people that own vessels that get completely underutilized. So I think it gives a really interesting alternative to that for people that don't have months and months to spare. So we'll see. Yeah, we're going to launch that at Dusseldorf. There's a lot going on at Dusseldorf next week. So
fantastic, great. So if anyone wants to find out a bit more about that and meet the team and see what you've got, then go to Dusseldorf. And I'm sure you're going to do some other shows after. Is it Monaco Yacht Show, Fort Lauderdale?
So. Do you know what? I have no idea. I ask Eleanor what the plan is.
Follow on social media. That's the best way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, very good.
Cool. And then the last question I want to ask you is, I have the show called Luxury with Natalia, is what is luxury to you?
So I think that's a really interesting question. And I think we would probably define it as a business as the opportunity to go to these really remote, unspoiled locations and to help ensure that they're protected for future generations and things like that. So we for us, it's about just luxury is getting off the grid, extraordinary experiences with your family, friends, kids, and being able to do that in areas that are just, that affect you profoundly, and then having the ultimate respect for those areas by ensuring that the vessel that you take there is, a hybrid, isn't discharging, sort of junk over the side and all the rest of it. And so I think it's, luxury to me is just the idea of being able to go somewhere very lightly, really enjoy it. It's sort of that the spectacular nature of it, and leave feeling profoundly affected by it, and think, that was the best thing I could have done for my family or for my kids or my friends or whatever. So I think that's a reasonable sort of luxury to me, is that, protected world, pristine environments.
Sounds good. Gosh, and I hope to be able to one day become one of the Oxen fans and join in on one of the adventures and see it all for myself. So I hope that comes very shortly.
We've sent you the ticket already, haven't we?
Yay! Well, I've got a couple of years to go till I hit 40, so it's like
Lucky you.
They sort of make their successes after a certain age, so that's going to be me for sure. Thank you so much.
It was lovely to talk to you.
Jasper, it's been a pleasure and nice to see you, all happy and smiling, and well done on all your successes, you and your team. And I look forward to keeping in touch and seeing what's happening in the world of Oxen soon. Very good. Thanks, Natalia. Really lovely to talk to you. Thank you. All right, everyone. This was another episode on Yachting International Radio's Luxury with Natalia. More episodes coming in a few days' time, so keep tuning in. Thanks. Bye.